Hello, everyone. I'm Grace Bewley Hunt, Home and Design Editor at Luxe Interiors and Design, and I'm so excited to be joined today by Tatum Kendrick, the creative tour de force behind Studio Huss. For those of you who are just being introduced to Tatum's work today, Tatum is a hugely talented interior designer based in LA, though she did open her first design offices here in New York, where I am today. Tatum does it all, but what really strikes me so much about her work is how richly considered it is and how narrative it is. There is just a story behind every last detail. And in turn, her projects just unfurl like these great tapestries. We recently had the privilege of publishing a fabulous Hamptons project of Tatum's design. And I'm just delighted that we have the opportunity to revisit that home again and dive a little further into the design today. So Tatum, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. That was such a generous opening. So I'm super psyched to be talking about the project too and filling in more than just what's on those glossy pictures.
Yes, definitely. So I kind of want to get started today really talking about, this kind of narrative lyrical quality behind your spaces because I love the backstory and the inspiration behind this home in particular. And I'm going to directly quote your feature. You said, "The story in my mind was that it had been passed down through generations, a crazy British grandma type of house that I could layer in," which I loved so much. It's so specific.
Yeah.
I was hoping you could kind of tell us a little bit more about how that inspiration came to be and what felt right about it for this home and also for these clients.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think to back up a little bit, I've always really loved that kind of grandma chic vibe, and I have never really quite had the opportunity in a house to do that. So I think that concept really came after doing the initial walkthrough with the client. It was when we approached the house, it was a shingle story home that you often see in the Hamptons. It was quite large, but the developer who had built it from like an existing smaller kind of historical home. So
Hmm.
the rooms really felt intimate and much like an older home. And they had a really beautiful scale to them. And there was a ton of millwork and just really good bones. So I could just instantly see, being able to really capitalize on that, capitalize on all of the millwork and really just kind of layer in and make it like really wackadoodle, but in a tasteful way. So,
Tasteful wackadoodle. I love
tasteful wackadoodle. Yeah.
that. And this was a vacation residence for your clients, right?
Yeah, it was a vacation residence. And, they've been such an amazing client. I think this was my fifth house for them. And the reason why they've had so many houses is that their family has just been growing. And so they really love this house because their daughter, who just recently had a baby, they're a really tight knit family and they just wanted enough space for everybody to, have their own, wings.
Like when you were kind of thinking about this almost like generational home a la like the British estates, was that kind of part of it too, that piece that this is really a family home and
Yeah.
something that hopefully will be with them?
Yeah, totally. I think that they are such a beautiful family. They have such a tight like nucleus family. I actually started working with them through their sister in New York many moons ago, and so it really was that feeling of togetherness and layering and generation. So I think that was in part where this whole storyline came from.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to dive into some of those wackadoodle grandma design notes as well, kind of starting with, the interior architecture piece. I know with this home, it was kind of a situation where you didn't want to get into a huge renovation, but there were definitely changes that needed to be made. So could you tell us a little bit about, you mentioned all this millwork and kind of like the bones as you found them and some of those like cosmetic updates you made?
Yeah, totally. And you're correct. I think they just purchased a very large home, and so obviously, and it was a great house. So we obviously didn't want to get into a massive construction build out, and it really wasn't necessary. But there were a few tweaks that needed to be made. Mainly the floors. We redid all of the floors. They were just like a really dark, glossy black almost, and we touched most of the fireplaces. And for the millwork, it was really just picking really great color stories. And I started with the front entry because you kind of walk through into the house, and the whole front of the house is this kind of like long chute that connects to the rear of the house, which are all the more common space rooms. So that front of house, I really wanted, that was an anchoring point. So I really wanted that to feel impactful. So I changed the floors in there as well. They were wood, and I wanted to differentiate those. So I did a black and white checkerboard stone that was, very kind of historical vibe. And
Yeah.
then decided to just paint all of the millwork black. And at first the client was a little bit like, oh, like really? And I know black seems trendy, but it's really not. I feel like you see black so much in like British historical homes, in stair railings and common spaces. And so that's kind of what the jumping off point was for that main kind of entry point, the back hall that like connected to the mudroom, that connected to the butler pantry, and then also the upstairs stair hall and landing. And then from there, it really was about looking at each individual space, what that lighting was, how they were going to use that space, and then creating their own individual stories within that as you move through the house. So it almost felt like a little bit like almost like, I don't know, I thought about it like a movie, almost as you like move through scenes, like what's going to happen when, and what is the feeling and what is the energy and the mood that you want to be in those spaces.
Yeah, such an exciting exercise. So when it came to the millwork, you really didn't take anything out or replace it. It was more a color story and a paint exercise, right?
Yeah, totally. I think I like drove my painting contractor a bit mad. I think I had, for the dining room alone, like 12 different samples because that mint green is just so hard to nail. But yeah, we got
Great
through
mint
it.
green.
We're still friends. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, something else I kind of want to talk a bit about as well is, there's of course many other design influences besides this, grande dame granny who's
Mhm.
kind of informing, the story here. I know that your client really loves mid-century design, and
Mhm.
then there's also this like amazing kind of beautiful minimalist edit. So it's that, that push and pull of let's layer in and then let's pull it back. And I think that's something you do so well in general. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about achieving that balance in this particular project, and also if you just had any rules of thumb when it comes to that kind of balance.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. I really had to think about that because I feel like I don't really know. It's not really like something that I have as a rule, but I guess
Yeah,
I'm thinking about it. I really looked at the house as like, let the bones of the house, let the architecture be kind of the more wild and loud and layered pieces, because I felt like that was something that you would like stumble upon these beautiful houses that we see that are like need to be renovated or something, and they have all of
yeah,
this gorgeous, wallpaper or flooring or what have you. And then personally with my projects, I like there to be a lot of space around things. I like things that just feel very airy.
yeah,
And I don't, as much as I love that chocolate block full feel in certain spaces, I think in general it's nice to just have breath inside of a space. And so I think that maybe was the, the push and pull between like letting the bones and letting the be kind of a little bit more wild while making sure that the room wasn't too cluttered. And then the
yeah.
pieces that we would then select had to be really special and really appointed and really, thoughtful. And that was so much fun, just really trying to edit like all of the stuff that
Yeah.
I really love and really, hone in on what those pieces should be.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a great piece of advice. I feel like we usually think of like keep the framework and keep the bones clean, and then you can do whatever with the interiors. But when you kind of reverse engineer that and you have the bold maximalist canvas,
Yeah.
and then, kind of making that minimalist curation, that like makes the design so exciting. Yeah, I was hoping you could kind of talk about a few of those favorite design details. Like I love all the cheetah motif that pops up where
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect it. But I kind of wanted to talk about some of the formative design notes, like big hero pieces, prints, colors. Like what were some of the jump off points and what are your favorite details?
Well, the dining room, I think, was one of my favorite spaces. And that wallpaper that I used, I've always loved that Scalamandre wallpaper. I think it's just so stunning.
Mhm.
So I knew I wanted to do that in that room. And I wanted that room to feel fresh. Like I just wanted that room to have this very kind of like spring-like feeling. I knew that, it connects directly to the kitchen, which was very white and bright. So I started with a wallpaper in that room, and I knew I wanted to just play with layers of color on the millwork in there. So I think that room has about 4 different types of greens. And then that table, I've always loved that marble Angeletti table. And I think that just the way, like the smoothness, like the room was not that big and the ceilings, were not that high. So
Yeah.
I just wanted something that felt very smooth. And that table has just like this beautiful rounded edge to it. And then the Pierre Charbon console that's against the window, that like really beautiful French oak. I just love how that played with the green. And I've always been a huge fan of their work. So really, I was just looking for something appropriate for the dining room from them that could feel really great in there. And then you mentioned the leopard. I think the leopard was just super fun. Another thing I loved was just the tapestry that we hung in the living room. I've always been a huge fan of like Flemish tapestries. And I love the idea when you're on the second floor landing that, you can kind of overlook into the living room and you could, you're standing on this leopard carpet and then you're looking at this blue Flemish tapestry, and like those tension points just felt really good to me too.
Yeah, that tapestry is amazing in that double height room.
Because that's the first thing you see when you walk into the house. You look through the entry and like into that living room and out to the back. So I really looked at that living room as I wanted to create this sculpture garden with furniture. I wanted everything to feel really low, and I wanted everything to really have a lot of like sculptural, sensual shape. So it didn't, it wasn't heavy or clunky. I just kind of wanted it to invite you in. And also just because it was so narrow, we couldn't do like a standard like square kind of layout. So using
Right.
that Gucci sofa kind of allowed us to like put everything on an angle and kind of allow everything to like flow a little bit easier in that space. And then I placed an old world day bed in that window in the back, thinking that, the family could be in the pool and you could just be like laying inside and kind of having your own moment, like reading a book or what have you, but still feeling connected to what was happening outside. So
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like that moment almost does like remind you a little bit of being in a museum and sitting on one of those benches and just like
yeah,
looking around you. Like it like once it's like that moment really comes across to me.
yeah.
And it's so beautiful. I kind of to wrap things up wanted to just ask you about how this project stands out in your body of work. I know it was a really special install for you,
Yeah.
but I'm just curious to know if it, really pushed you in a new direction as a designer, or how it really kind of stands out in your memory. Perhaps even like a favorite client anecdote you'd like to share.
All my projects really push me. I think that for better or for worse, I feel like I'm always trying new things, which sometimes you are successful at them, sometimes you're not. But yeah, I think that this project really, from a more technical side, we did this very quickly. I think we did this in like 7 months, and it was a
Wow.
7,000 square foot house. So we pushed this really fast. And I think for me, it really forced me and allowed me to just shoot a gun at the wall and just not overthink things and just really
Yeah.
use my instincts and just kind of like go for it and take risks, because we had to just keep moving.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. And I did really like the storytelling. I feel like in this house, because there were so many rooms and there was different wings that their daughter was in, and then there was a carriage house, like there
Yeah.
really were so many different moments that I was able to, in my head, kind of create a story in order to create, which was always helpful to me. For the client, the install was really special because we were able to be in the Hamptons for 2 weeks, living inside of a space that I'd only really been staring at on, a piece of paper. So
Yeah.
that was really special, like just seeing how the light moves and how things really feel energetically. And then the clients came, and it was great. They're like family at this point. So, it was pretty cool. But I think the most special part was, they left and they live in Florida during the winters. And due to COVID, I think they were there longer than normal. It was about 7 months. And when she came back, she out of the blue just sent me a really sweet email just saying how she had been away from the house for 7 months and she's back and she's just so happy and so grateful and it feels really good. And she was just, that was everything. That felt really great.
Absolutely. Well, we just love this project. It
Oh,
was in both our Greater New York books and our national book, and just really stands out as a huge highlight of our past year. So thank you for taking some time to kind of dive into the design notes a bit more. Of course, we could do this all day, but
yes.
I will send you on your way, Tatum, and say thank you so much.
Uh,
And thank you everyone for tuning in to Design TV. We will see you next time.
Hi there, I'm Kathryn Given from Luxe Interiors and Design, and thank you so much for tuning into our Collab Lab segment on DesignTV. Today, I am so excited to be chatting all things collaboration with a designer I greatly admire who needs no introduction, Thom Filicia.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks for being here. And from Feizy, the makers of beautiful rugs, we have Justin Yeck, the vice president there. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Kathryn. How are you?
I'm
Hey,
good.
Justin.
Hey, Thom.
Thank you guys so much for joining. I have to say, you know, when I was at High Point Market last month, this was one of my favorite introductions. It's sophisticated, it's easy to use in interiors, it's just super livable. You know, obviously it's what people want in their homes right now. So just to begin, I'd love if you could both just talk a little bit about how this partnership came to be, right? I think it's the first time you're collaborating. So how did you guys connect?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to tell you first how I did it. I stalked them.
I love that.
I mean, so I will give you a little bit of background. So, you know, we've worked with Feizy, you know, for years, and I purchased their product. I started working on a television show with Bravo called Get a Room, and Feizy was an amazing resource for us throughout that project. I started realizing what a great resource they were for us as our design firm. And I thought, wow, if I were to do a rug line, this is the kind of partner that would be amazing to work with. And we talked about it internally and thought, let's reach out to them and see if they'd ever even consider a partnership. And Laura from my office started sort of talking to the team over at Feizy, and it just was, you know, received with a, you know, sort of with a possibility, let's talk about it more. And it just kind of grew from there. Justin was also trying to sell this concept to the company, like, hey, there's this crazy designer that I think would be a great partner.
Is that how it goes? That's not how it went, Justin?
Yeah, no, we didn't say crazy designer. You know what, I think when we were starting to look for partnerships, we've looked at this in the past and we've had these experiences with these partnerships, and we really wanted someone who had the same ethos that we did, as a company that is geared towards designers, working with a well-known designer within the community, and someone that's respected by designers. And so, you know, I think that's where this whole partnership came from.
They couldn't get that person, so that's when I showed up.
So we got Thom instead. We've been so excited. You know, I think it's gosh, almost a 2-year process in the making.
Yeah.
And, you know, for this whole collaboration together, it was just a natural fit.
Yeah.
I love that. So guys, I want to talk a little bit about what you said, Justin, like the product making process, because it is so involved, it's long, it's prototyping, ideas, finishing. But can you talk about that a little bit? Was there a lot of back and forth, or where did you even begin?
Sure. Yeah. You know, I mean, we really asked for inspiration from Thom and his team and his creative director, Randy. And they came through with amazing inspiration for us. I mean, I think when you're looking at having a partner who comes through with this inspiration of what they're looking for and the product and their designs, and they want that to translate over, so often you'll get people who are like, oh, I don't really know where I want to go with this. And so, you know, Thom and his team had such a beautiful perspective of where we can take these products and what they were looking for. And honestly, I mean, I'll turn it back over to Thom on this one. It was seamless. I mean, he has a good story about it, but I'll just say that it's been absolutely amazing to work with him and his team.
Well, thank you. That's so sweet. And I know we really have had this sort of heart to heart at like a dinner, or, you know, we really did. I can't even remember where we were, but, you know, the reality is that I think there are a lot of, it's from both sides. You know, I think when you find a partner, whether you're the licensee or the licensor, you know, when you find a partner who's committed to the concept, who's invested in it, who cares about it, and really sees it as a long-term relationship, and understanding that, you know, it's first and foremost, the first thing you want to do is what we kind of did in the beginning, which is it's kind of like dating. I'm single, so I'm maybe not very good at it, but so the thing is that it's kind of like dating in a sense, you want to find the right person or the right, partner. Let's just, kind of perfect word. And then once you do that, you have to, you really have to start to understand the sort of speak each other's language. And that was super seamless and really easy. We were able to really, the first thing we had to do is look at sort of what they were doing, what they're doing, look at the breadth of what they already have, and figure out where we fit into into that space and how we would define ourselves within it. We already know sort of our point of view and our perspective, and within that, we have the ability to really sort of make it, we can sort of tweak it one way or the other. So the first thing we wanted to do is make sure that we weren't sort of cannibalizing anything that already existed, and also that we were doing something that felt new and interesting and exciting, but also felt like it belonged with the overall sort of the Feizy sort of family. And, one of the things that we try to do with our products is that I try to make them appealing to designers, both in the sense that they are really great designs and it's a great product, but that we're thoughtful about, designers being able to purchase them, being able to resell them. How do we see these things sort of landing into the designers' hands, from the designers to their clients, or from designers or designers that have showrooms, or that are selling product to other designers. So we're really looking at it in all those ways. Having that perspective, I think, really helps us when we're in the design phase, and also when we're looking at quality and looking at the layers of quality that we want to work within, and where we want to sort of springboard into a relationship and into that product world, and knowing that we can sort of grow the breadth of that as we move forward.
Right. So let's take a look at some of these beautiful designs. I think Wethersfield was one of mine. It was interesting coloring with the yellow, gray, and it had this sort of chunky knot. Where did this kind of come from?
Well, so one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted our line, as we initially bring it out, to be sort of identifiably unique, but also friendly, familiar at the same time. Something that designers and that when people are out shopping for product for their showrooms or for their clients, that they're looking at this and it solves a lot of it's a design sort of problem solver. That these are things that we can integrate into existing interiors, or if you put them on a showroom floor, that they can really translate to people, but without them being sort of anonymous or sort of something that we feel like we've seen a million times, or just doing them in sort of neutrals all the time, just so that they can sort of have that sort of that easy versatility. I wanted them to have a little bit stronger point of view, and as the collection grows, we can become more and more specific, but giving it that unique but very pointed kind of design perspective was really important to me. The Wethersfield, that quality has a really beautiful sort of chunky quality to it, which I really like. And what it does is it kind of blurs a little bit of the design. It gives the design, it's not a really sort of refined line that you're getting on anything. Right. It gives you this kind of chunky blurriness, which I really like. And it almost gives the rugs a little bit of a kind of a vintage kind of feel to them, which I love. They're hand knotted, it's 100% wool, the quality is amazing. What I loved about it is that these are like heirloom quality rugs, but the price points are really approachable. The quality is really, really high quality. And I thought that the way that the yarns take the fabric and the way that you see the design gave it kind of a, I don't know, like sometimes when you see like an old Ushak, it's kind of worn a little bit and it's a little bit blurry. It kind of has that sensibility. And I just saw these as, I just love, that's one of my favorite qualities for that reason. They're all different and unique, but I really loved that sensibility. And texture to me is something that's really important in rugs. For me, the first launch has really been, we did a lot with texture, We did a lot with sort of these natural woven kind of patterns that were almost an explosion of something that we've seen before, like a rattan or a wicker, and we've kind of taken it, and it looks a bit abstract. It may even look a little bit modern, but when you really understand and look at it, it starts to become very familiar at the same time and very sort of timeless.
You know, rugs and, you know, Fenner, Long Ridge, they're all very graphic. I think one is hand knotted. Was there a certain, you know, aesthetic, you know, that you were going for, Justin, or did you know that, you know, graphics are going to sell? I just kind of want to hear your point of view, you know, from sort of like the rug side.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, we wanted to look at, when we were looking at creating the collection, we wanted to kind of keep it within a couple of different price areas and categories. So something that's a little bit more accessible, a little bit more of that higher end, and then really that aspirational or inspirational piece. And so we really looked to develop into each of those three categories. I think, for example, like the Weatherfield, that chunky knot, we've done a ton of research on this, and especially since COVID and people wanting that warmth, that comfort level, that chunky knot is just a home run hit. I think it just allows you to kind of dig your feet in there. It's actually a cut pile. So a lot of clients think it's loop. It's not. Really, really thick, beautiful fibers in it. And I think it warms up some more of those cooler colors. So that pale yellow, which I think is absolutely stunning, mixed with that gray. The moment we saw it, we fell in love with that whole collection.
And that's one of the things about the pile, the way that rug is, you know, made, is that it does give us the ability to be a little bit cooler with our palette, and it still has a warmth to it because of that sort of chunkiness that it has, or that sort of the heft of the pile, which is really great. And I think that it does give it a really, you know, it gives it kind of a real sort of substantial kind of warmth, which is really nice.
So Thom, are you planning to use, you know, these in your upcoming projects, or have you?
Absolutely. I mean, actually, it's funny. When we photographed the rugs we photographed them in my showroom in New York. We photographed them in my house my apartment in New York City. I have there's a Feizy rug sitting right behind me on the floor of my living room that is from way before we did this together. So before we launched all the product. So I really do live with them. I love them. And yes, I've already chosen the one I want for my living room in New York. And we already show the rugs in our showroom are already Feizy rugs that we show in our showroom, but now we'll be able to show Feizy rugs that actually are our design that we will have on the floor. We also show them at High Point in our showroom at High Point. So as we grow Sedgwick and Brattle and hopefully go to different cities with that showroom, also as High Point continues to move forward, we'll be doing that as well. But yes, yeah, we're committed to the product at multiple levels. We're committed to it in terms of we really want to be a part of the design process, whether we're designing hardware, whether we're designing artwork, rugs, bedding, furniture, textiles. Every single one of our partners knows that we are very, you know, we're involved in a way that makes these products not only, I think, come to life in a way that hopefully they have legs, but also that we're actually committed to using the product, you know, that we're using them in our projects, all of our projects, and I'm living with them. And when I'm being photographed in my space, or my apartment is in El Decor, or, you know, or think projects that we're doing, we have a project that's going to be an AD this month, and there's Feizy rugs in that. So it's like, it's organic, you know. I mean, I don't only use my product, I use a lot of other people's product. I use vintage and antique pieces. I mean, we're shopping high, medium, and, you know, entry level. So, and I use all of my products, or sometimes none of my products, in just a few products, sometimes in projects. So it really, it's about having it as a great resource. And I definitely practice what I preach. I mean, I'm sitting at my dining table right now. I'm sitting on my dining chair. A lot of the furniture behind me is, you know, original pieces from a Vanguard line. So I definitely am committed to my relationships and also the product, and also the long-term, sort of success of the products, and sort of, developing them and really standing behind them. I would
Right.
never recommend someone to stand on a rug, sit on a sofa, or have dinner at a table that I wouldn't consider using in my own home.
Of course. Well, I can't wait to see, some of these rugs in your upcoming projects. And, thank you both for chatting and talking a little bit more about the collaboration. My fingers are crossed for a round 2. And, congratulations. The designs are so beautiful. To our viewers, thanks for tuning in, and see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Mwah.
Bye.
It's hard for, I think particularly for women, to be taken seriously as business owners, especially young women in an industry that's seen sometimes in a frivolous light. I think it's hard to, I don't know, sometimes legitimize that. And so then you're going through and you're meeting with these accountants and they're literally looking at you like, yeah. I don't know that that's what you're doing is gonna happen, but sure, we'll take your monthly retainer. And then now it's like, oh, you have a real business. And we're like, yeah, we've been trying to tell you that we're running a real business, I'm India Mayer, and this is Katie Shaw, and we are the co-founders of an influencer marketing agency called Of Note, which is centered around a physical location, which we're in, called Note House Nashville. And Note House Nashville is a content creation studio and co-working space for social media influencers and content creators.
We met here in Nashville working at a public relations agency in town. We were like instant friends, and then realized that we worked like super well together, and so we decided that we wanted to do something together. We knew that influencer marketing was going to be the thing that was going to take over the industry. And so we're constantly kind of thinking of creative ideas, like how can we disrupt the industry? How can we be involved in this? What can we do that will be different than what everyone else is doing? We designed the space with a particular look in mind. So the idea is the space is for content creation, and these influencers come to Note House Nashville because they want something different. They want to shoot in a space that they haven't shot before to add some interest to their social media platforms.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Abigail.
We're better known as the Wanderlust Girls. We do a fashion, lifestyle, and travel blog.
We were in New York City and we moved to Nashville a few years ago. So we love it, and this is the reason why we love it, because there's creatives like this.
We just loved every time we came here, there was so many creatives. Everyone you met was like, oh, I'm a sculptor, I'm an artist, I make jewelry.
There's obviously Music City, so there's lots of musicians, and I think more like photography and interiors, like a lot of people are coming here, and so the brands respond well, and obviously we have now 45 influencer and content creator members in our space, so that continues to grow.
We, with our interior design partner, envision this space to have lots of little vignettes. So you can shoot over there in the corner with that cactus, and that's one photo. And then you can literally move 1 foot over and you're in front of the fireplace, and that's another photo. And then you can move again and you get the artwork, and that's another photo. So then just this one space alone, maybe get 20 photos that kind of look like they're in a different location.
Every nook and cranny here is so well designed and so thought out, even down to, like the light fixtures and even like the vases. They're so beautiful, and those are things that we can incorporate into our shoots. Like actually this afternoon, we're gonna be doing a shoot here in the kitchen because we both don't have kitchens that would work for this. And so that's something that we were able to do here, but we couldn't do anywhere else.
So, I mean, like, yeah, everything here is just everything we need to build our company.
One big goal of our company was to help legitimize this industry. Influencers are often looked at as frivolous. Oh, they're just posting about their outfits. Oh,
It's not hard work.
Yeah. Well, they're like making 7-8 figures a year. Not every single one, but that's the potential of that sort of career. Influencers are driving $15 billion of sales for brands. So it's legit.
And it is hard work. I mean, these people are their own small businesses.
And part of Note House is to do that, is to support them as they grow their businesses.
One thing that I think is important to mention is while we are obviously like 100% dedicated to our business and to what it is and the concept, I think one of the big things that we connected on was the fact that we wanted to have a life that wasn't just a business, and we wanted to get married and have kids and go on trips and not feel like we're in a constant rat race.
We will work really hard. We'll be sending each other emails at 10 p.m. and, you know, working on the weekend. But then, like today, when we're done with this at 2 or 3 or whatever, we're gonna go have a glass of wine and maybe we'll get our nails done. Yeah, I think we're trying to create the life that we want.
You know, I thought she was one to tell you, like, you enough with like trying out haircuts.
Yeah, she kind of
But
was.
clearly not.